All right, welcome everybody to another edition of the Dad at Arms channel. I'm your host, Dad at Arms. I also go by Colt. And with me today, I have a fun guest. I'm joined today by Shane Minshew of Powerhouse, aka Blood Snake.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to meet you finally.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we get into it, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of tell everybody, what it is you do.
Yeah, so my name is Shane. I am one of the partners at Powerhouse and one of the heads of production. I oversee both our series side and what we call our boutique side, which is like small format commercials, advertisements, game cinemas. That's more or less how the company sort of was brought up throughout its history. But yeah, I get to do a lot of spreadsheets. I get to do a lot of go-betweens between our clients and our various aspects of the show. I negotiate contracts. I negotiate schedules when there's problems. I'm the one who's got to go talk to the powers that be and let them know that there's problems and find solutions. When I first started at Powerhouse, a little over 16 years ago, I was just an animator and started working on some, back in the day, we were a pure flash studio, action script and the whole bit. We didn't even use After Effects or anything when I was first working there. But as an animator, started working on an educational project for middle schoolers, and then just sort of stuck around and worked my way up. And, as a studio collectively, we worked really hard to build a brand and a name for ourselves. And that's kind of where we find ourselves today.
Very cool. So as a He-Man fan, I see the wonderful wall behind you and all the toys, and I see the power sword hanging there. What is your relation to He-Man as a fan?
So He-Man is my number one ride or die pop culture love. I was born in the early 80s, and so I grew up with all of that stuff, pre-Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles took over whenever that kind of came out for my age. But pre-Ninja Turtles, I could not get enough He-Man. It was must watch, had to get all the toys I could. I remember me and my brother had little He-Man half tents with sleeping bags, and we'd sleep out in the living room. Just sort of as time went on. So I started collecting toys when I was 18. And the day I turned 18, I went to go get a tattoo, and it was He-Man.
Nice.
And it was very large. And then shortly after that, I went and got a full sleeve. And, since basically the year 2000, which the Mike Young series came out. Shortly after that, my He-Man love was sort of like reignited, and really started focusing on the He-Man toys at that time again, recollecting stuff that maybe had gone away from when I was a kid. Fast forward to whenever it is we started Revelation. Brad, who's our CEO and my boss, kind of surprised me. He was like, "Hey, can you come to my office?" He was like, "You have any interest in working on a He-Man show?" And I was like, "Yeah." And at that point in time, I don't even think we knew Kevin Smith was attached. But in the deck we put together to sort of like pitch ourselves for the show, the last page of that deck was just me and my tattoos and my love for He-Man. So I like to think that I helped a little bit. We wouldn't have had the show without Teddy B. So, shout out to him. I did tell Brad after we sort of landed the job, though, that nothing else will beat this. And I would probably have to quit afterwards. I haven't. I'm always hopeful that we get to make more He-Man. I'm very, very proud of both shows. I'm very, very proud of the work we did on it. And it's the highlight of my professional and my personal career.
That's amazing. I can only imagine how it must feel. I mean, as you said, He-Man is my number one as well. Always has been. And a little bit of Ninja Turtles. Most of my room is covered in He-Man stuff with a few shelves of Ninja Turtle stuff. But yeah, to be able to work in a professional capacity on something that you absolutely adore, I mean, that's the dream.
It
That's
is. I
amazing.
couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I pinched myself through, the entire productions, and, productions have ups and they have downs.
Hmm.
But there was never a point where I just was in disbelief the entire time. I could not believe I was, pardon my French, working on fucking He-Man. I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I am just so stoked every day. And, it was fun too, because I know you've talked to some other coworkers of mine.
Hmm.
And it was fun process to sort of bring them along for the ride and kind of watch their love for the property and the characters and everything grow over the time that we worked on both seasons. A lot of crew worked on both shows. So there was a lot of carryover there, and there's just a lot of people working at Powerhouse Animation right now that, 5 years ago may not have even known any He-Man characters besides He-Man and Skeletor, now have their very own favorite versions of them and everything else. So it's really wonderful to just be a part of the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the best things about being a part of a fandom is you get to see new people come in and fall in love with it the same way we did.
Yeah.
I'm active on Twitter, or X, whatever it's called, and different fan groups on Facebook, and obviously the YouTube channel. I've talked with a bunch of people attached to specifically Revelation and Revolution, and I'm just always just so humbled and amazed by how great the fans are, and how much love was put into these seasons of Revelation and Revolution. And I've said it to I try to say it to everybody that I've had the chance to talk to who's worked on it. So I want to make sure I say it to you, just as a fan, and I know you feel this too, but thank you for giving it the love that it deserves. And I remember just sitting down and watching Revelation Part 1 for the first time, just being so amazed that I was watching a new He-Man show again. It'd been 20 years since
Yep.
the Mike Young stuff, and it's one of those properties that just kind of ebbs and flows with time. There's been moments where I thought, well, that's it for He-Man, it's just going to live in my memory, and then something else comes along, and I feel like now we're in this renaissance of Masters of the Universe, where we've got so many great new toys coming out. We've got the shows, we've got the live action movie that was just announced, and it's a good time to be a fan. But
I agree, and I appreciate the kind words. And again, I'm glad it comes through. There are some, pun intended, some clowns out there that may not feel
yeah.
the same way. But the amount of love, the amount of care that went into this, both shows, was immense. It was Teddy, as we all know, is he may be the top fan on the planet for what my money's worth. And then of course Rob, and then you bring in Kevin Smith, who is a genius. You got Bear McCreary. Adam and Pat did a phenomenal job diving into those worlds, those characters, and bringing them to life. So yeah, we greatly appreciate it. Again, I am so proud of everything that we did on this, and nothing else. I maybe something else tops it at some point in time, but this is the highlight of my entire life. So yeah,
that's incredible. And that's kind of what started me down this path of getting into these interviews and starting this channel. Is I remember the negativity that people were pushing about the show, and it was so disappointing to see, and just all these things taken out of context and misinformation floating around. And I'd watched an interview, I think it was on Geek Dad Life, that they did with Ted.
Yeah.
And I was just so happy to see him talking about it, because back then, I didn't know anything about what was going on, and you kind of try to consume any news you can about He-Man. And so of course, the negativity is going to kind of seep in a little bit. And so you kind of get that feeling, be like, what if they aren't handling it correctly, And then I saw Ted talk after Part 1 dropped, and I was like, no, I was like, he's got it. I was like, I didn't see, when I watched Part 1, I was like, I don't get what the problem is here. Like, this makes sense to me. These are the story points that make sense based on the lore and where we've been. what we want to see happen. And after that interview, I just sent a message to Teddy on Instagram, and I just told him, hey, I know there's a lot of negativity out there, but there are fans out there who appreciate you and what you're doing, so don't let it get you down. And from there, he's become a wonderful friend, and he's just an amazing person. And people like him, people like you, everybody I've talked to attached to this project has been the kindest, most wonderful people to chat with, and it just makes me proud to be a fan and happy to get the opportunity to meet and chat with everybody. So
again, for sure. And the other aspect of that is, I don't personally have kids, but we grew up on it, and like how rad to be able to introduce it to your kids and sit down and watch it with your kids. It's brand new. It's all happening real time. I can't even imagine what that must be.
It's incredible. There was something wonderful that happened when Revelation dropped. My youngest son was, going through, he wasn't a teenager yet. He was kind of in that preteen era where they struggle with their confidence levels and stuff like that. And he watched Revelation with me, and he just had this immediate connection with Orko.
Yeah.
And seeing Orko, his character development, and that all resonated with him.
Yeah.
And then, a few months ago, I got the chance to interview Griffin Newman, and I got to he spent a few minutes off the record, chatting with my son face to face, like we are now. And as a dad, seeing where my son is now and knowing that Masters of the Universe had a little part in helping him gain confidence and be more assured of himself, and it just makes me so happy.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine. And again, don't have kids, but speaking for a 42-year-old man, same, working on this production did essentially the same for me. It really, mentally did a lot during, a time in animation where it was just going crazy. Everything was everywhere. Everything was moving really fast, and be able to work on this and kind of, get my teeth wet on not only this property, not only working with Mattel and Netflix directly, but sort of seeing a full season of a show that I care so deeply about, immensely changed who I am as a person in like the most positive ways possible.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's incredible. I love it. It's one of those things that's just been, and I'm obviously preaching to the choir, but it's just been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. I've talked about this on other channels. I even have, I get to brag that when my wife and I got married, for our wedding cake, we had He-Man and Tila as our wedding cake toppers. And it's just stuff like that just makes me feel so happy, as a fan. And it's great.
Sure. My mom she had two very, very, very old dogs. I think they made it to like 15 and 16, but one of them I named, 16 years ago, and her name was Tila. And awesome. So now for Christmas, we get her different Tila action figures, and it sort of amazing. Crosses those boundaries as well. So it's a nice way for me and my mom to connect, and it's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Honestly, my big problem with MOTU in general is I just don't have enough space for everything. I've got
I know, right?
a dozen tubs in the garage just filled with stuff that I can't even put out because I just don't have room for it anymore.
Yep. I think a lot of us are in the same boat. I keep telling my wife that whenever we do, if we make renovations to our house, the first thing to be renovated is this toy room here, because I'm just out of space.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into kind of more technical aspects of the show. When you first started working on it, what was kind of the approach to tackling this project?
So we had a lot of, early pre-production conversations, and this has been documented time and time again. But the thing that stuck out to me the most was Teddy talking about how, when you're a kid and you're playing with these action figures, it all feels very real. When you're watching the show as a kid, the stakes feel very real. And, his approach to this was he wanted this to feel just like that, but it has grown up with its audience. And that's something that I really, really hung on to. And then The second part that was more specific to Powerhouse was finding this updated look and feel for the universe, right? The entire cast and the characters in the world. And we wanted to make sure that we were putting, Powerhouse has a style that people go to us for. Mm-hmm. We wanted to find something that was not only going to fit in the Powerhouse style, but to Teddy's point, aged with the audience and still gave you those same feelings of being 5 years old, playing with the toys in the backyard and all this stuff. So that was really important to me. A few other things were, we wanted to expand lore. We wanted to expand on various aspects of different canons within the universe. You've got the movie, which isn't really attached to anything. Revolution, obviously, we tied that in pretty nicely, I felt. Mm-hmm. And then we also wanted to grow and expand characters past, an episode arc where something happens and then it all gets cleaned up at the end. We wanted real stakes. We wanted a lot of, drama, but we also, again, want this to be something that moms and dads can sit down with their sons and daughters and watch together, and it's not too adult. So there was a really fine line there. And, we put a lot of love and care into finding that line, finding that lane that we could have this version of MOTU live in. And I think we, maybe a little biased, but I think we were pretty successful.
Awesome. Oh, that's fantastic. We've seen, I have the art book for Revelation, and in that we see kind of these early takes on the characters before they got to the final stages. How much of that, I guess, what I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, how much does that take up of the process in moving into this, finding the final look that you want to go with?
Yeah, I mean, it is an incredibly big and important part of the process. In order to do storyboards and animatics, we have to know what the world is going to look like. What do the characters look like? And, all of that stuff. So when we have an episode where we have new characters or we have costume changes, all that stuff has to be sorted out before then. You also have a lot of cooks in the kitchen along the way, sort of guiding with their input and their notes and advice. You've got Kevin and you've got Teddy and you've got Rob and you have the directors. And, we built a really, really, really fantastic working relationship. And especially, throughout the first 10 episodes, we built the relationship. Then once we got to Revolution, we were just clicking on all cylinders at that point in time. So Revolution was a little bit quicker in terms of finding all of that stuff because we weren't starting from scratch. In terms of how that all works and how important it is, like I said, Teddy in his head, he's got an idea of how something may work, may look. Rob has an idea. Kevin has an idea. And it's our jobs to sort of listen, soak in these various ideas, and then bring them options that we feel are going to not only work for animation, right? We can't be too detailed. We can't have too many lines that animators are going to have to keep up with. Now, some of our designs are very, very complex. And everybody working on the show did a phenomenal job on it. But, there would be talks and debates about, should we have this on this side of the body, or should we, how does his new techno arm look and work? You just kind of collectively work and bounce ideas off of each other until you find something that works. Now, it also helps that there's deadlines involved with this. And so at some point in time, you can't noodle stuff forever. At some point in time, we kind of have to settle on something. But, all of the creatives that were involved with this, everybody was working together. Everybody had pretty clear ideas about where we wanted to go. Some characters took a little longer than others, but it was a very positive process. And, there are designs that were not in the show that I'm particularly fond of. And there's plenty of designs that made it into the show that I thought were the best version.
Awesome. If you could point to your favorite design, if you had to narrow it down to one, what would it be?
Let me think. I really, really like what we did with Man-at-Arms. I really, really love what we did in Revolution with He-Man and Tila with their mega powered versions. I think it is the coldest version of He-Man I've ever seen in my life. He looks like he is just ready to be in charge and kick some butt, you know. Orko, I think we did a really fantastic job. You know, going back to Griffin, he is incredible. He is incredible. I could not believe that it wasn't affected in any way. I couldn't believe it was just him acting, and it was lovely, and he made you feel. I think those are probably my favorite designs. Those aren't my favorite characters per se, but I think those are some of my favorite designs.
Awesome.
I'd also, you know, little humble brag here. I made it in the show, and that is also one of my favorite designs. So
very cool. So where are you at in the show?
So me and our CEO Brad in episode 105 or 106, I can't remember. It's the Evelyn backstory. We are the thugs chasing Evelyn that kind of corner her before Skeletor comes out and, you know, kicks her butt. Yeah,
that's awesome. And that's just another one of those things. Like, as a fan, like, I'm so jealous that, I mean, you're in a He-Man show. I mean, you got to work on a He-Man show, but you're in a He-Man show.
I know. And like in a comic book too, it was just like,
yeah,
what is going on in my life right now that what did I do to deserve this karma? Because it feels crazy, you know?
That's just wonderful. You know, going back to those designs, in the first season, I was looking forward to seeing Tila's sorceress design.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that, you know, we've been kind of waiting for so long. I mean, we'd seen her become the sorceress in the comics, you know, and everything. So I think a lot of fans were really excited to finally see that happen. And, you know, Tila's one of my favorite characters. So when she finally appears, you know, in her sorceress form, it was just amazing. And then going into Revolution, she gets her snake armor, which is, I mean, that's peak character design for me, is that snake armor. I've always loved it. Even, you know, going back to the original toy, it was just so unique and just amazing. But then that final transformation where she's got, you know, the central tower of Eternia headdress, and I mean, it was just amazing. I just remember watching it. I got to watch an early screener of the show, which was really exciting. And I just remember seeing that. I was like, I don't know how I'm not going to talk about this until I can, because, you know, it was just so cool to see, and I was just so blown away by it all. And man.
Yeah, that final form Tila was, you know, it was one we ruminated on for a little while. We had to make sure that we got it just right. The look was right. You know, we wanted her to feel definitely leveled up. Like, that was sort of the whole point. But we wanted to keep this sort of like, in Revelation, we kind of have, you know, this detachment where she leaves and she cuts her hair and then she gets her sorceress. And we kind of, you know, the thought kind of being, we want to keep this really powerful sorceress, but we also want to make sure that she's beautiful and that she and He-Man feel equally powered up. And it was definitely, those two designs were honestly, for Revolution, two of the ones that we spent probably the most time on.
Yeah. I remember chuckling to myself when during the double transformation scene where her hair just kind of erupts behind her.
Yes.
And it's almost like in flames, but it's so long and it's just flowing and everything. And the cynical side of me was like, if they were mad about Tila having her haircut in Revelation, I don't know what they're going to complain about this time.
Yes, agreed.
Because it was just like, this feels intentional.
I watched that sequence probably 700 times before the show came out. It was beautiful. And even like, again, just kind of going back to fandom and how excited, when we were working on the first 5 episodes before those even released, you know, when we were still actively in animation process, etc., I was watching those animatics every single weekend. I would watch them, and I mean, they would hit me with the same chills, the same emotions every single time. I can still watch it now and just be like flabbergasted by what I'm seeing, you know.
That's awesome. That's incredible. You know, kind of going back to this process that we're talking about, we go from the early stages of, I guess, you know, creating the world and designing it and how you want it to look. And then when in that process are the scripts kind of finalized, and does that happen before, like, the art style is taken care of, or is it all kind of at the same time?
No, so no show is the same. Sometimes scripts are done well ahead of time. Now, we do need a script in order to work on the episodes. And the way that the episodes sort of work, seeing as this is sort of, what I do as my job, they work on this sort of waterfall schedule. So, every few weeks, a new episode is starting, and every few weeks, whatever those milestones are, they waterfall for each episode. So there's a little bit of time in between episodes that we can have, a delayed script or something like that. For MOTU, the first season, we had a lot of that stuff up front. For the second season, we had some early episodes, and then the later episodes kind of came as we were working. So it's kind of, there is a definite final draft of the script that we're working on, and that's sort of the foundation of the piece. But just like our artwork, our storyboards, our animation, everything's sort of the knobs are being turned, and everything's kind of being tightened up as we continue through production.
Okay. And this is something that I really don't have a lot of knowledge of is how these animation processes work. So if I'm repeating questions, I apologize.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
But kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier with people who complained about the show and were negative about the show, I've seen so many instances of people talking about how changes happen because of bad fan reaction and stuff like that. The way I understand it is that everything is the way animation works is that those changes are impossible to make.
Correct.
Once things start happening.
Correct.
So there's no way that, one of the big things was that Tila and Andra were a couple, but then something changed because fans were mad about it to make it to, push Andra to the background and focus more on Adam.
Right.
That's bullshit, right?
100% bullshit. So animation is such a labor-intensive, slow process. Again, we can tighten screws. We cannot rebuild anything. Once something is sort of in motion, in terms of animation, there's not a whole lot of going back unless whomever is paying for the production, which is not us, Mattel and Netflix, whoever's paying for the production wants to pay extra money for pausing, fixing, redoing, and all of that stuff. We had a schedule and a budget from the very beginning. There were no this is not Sonic the Hedgehog. This is not, everybody's mad, let's go change it. It doesn't work like that in 2D animation. It's too laborious to be able to do that. So no, none of that happened. It's all bullshit. They have no idea what they're talking about. Now, did somebody read into something or contemplate whether or not something was happening? Maybe. I can't really speak for anybody, but that was never the intent.
Okay. Cool.
Just to put it to rest, because
love it. Yeah. And that's sorry to put you on the spot for that, but
no,
it's something that I've dealt with many times being on the internet.
Sure.
So we go through the pre-production process and finalizing these looks on everything. We go into the animatics and stuff like that. Can you explain to me what an animatic is? Yeah,
an animatic is essentially storyboards time to audio.
Okay.
We don't do storyboard pass and then an animatic pass. It's, like I said, such a labor-intensive process. If we did that, it would make it even longer process. So we sort of combine those two passes, and I think most people do that nowadays, especially with television shows and longer format stuff. But the animatic, at least as far as Powerhouse is concerned, every part is important. In my opinion, the animatic is sort of the most important. It's the biggest foundational piece in terms of what people are going to see on the screen. When we are done and we lock an animatic, that's it. It's done and locked. Again, we can make tweaks here. We can change some lines there. We can edit things if we need to. But those animatics are super important because there are hundreds of people that are going to work on these shows. And they're going to have, some people have no context of what is going on everywhere else in the show. And that animatic needs to be real clean, real concise. All the information needs to be easily read so that an animator or a background artist or a compositor can go into these shots, look at the animatic, understand what's going on, and then complete their assignment.
Okay. Awesome. And so you said that's storyboards set to audio.
Yes.
Does that mean so that's the voice actors have already recorded their dialogue and is that
most of the time. So ours can be a combination of scratch audio, which is just, us recording lines, just as placeholders. But we also have the actual voice recordings sent to us as well. When we're talking about the scripts, in a perfect world, we're going to have audio and we're going to have scripts before we're starting anything so that we know, all of the different aspects that are going to go into the various animatics. And then our editors, they will normally do like a temp audio pass where we'll pull music from other shows or movies that evoke the feelings that we want to convey within it. It also really helps. Without music, it's real flat to watch an animatic. It's voiceover. A lot of times it's scratch, which is, if I'm recording scratch, it's poorly acted at best. And the music really, really helps evoke emotion. It helps evoke, the gravity of the scenes. How important is it? How lighthearted is it? So we do a pretty significant temp audio pass that, Bear will take that. And again, it kind of informs him, the animatic plus the sound pass, kind of informing him what we're going for so that he can do his genius masterpiece work on the music. And it all trickles down from that animatic. Character designs, obviously very important. Environments, obviously very important. We need to know who the characters are and where they are. The animatics, again, in my opinion, are sort of the lifeblood of an animation production.
Okay. Well, very cool. How much is what changes happen between the animatics and going into, from the storyboard to more of the finalized?
For us,
scenes?
Not a lot. We really do try to lock an animatic that is as fully realized as we can possibly have it. Again, it's not to say that things don't change. We sometimes have to change things because, our showrunner had an idea for a slightly tweaked line. We might need to edit some shots, either quicker or longer holds, or maybe rearrange some shots so that they just flow a little bit better. But outside of those sort of nuanced screw tightening kind of aspects, and again, this is just speaking for Powerhouse, we really do try to have our animatics be as fully realized as possible. And I think that we take our animatics to a level sometimes that is borderline animating them, because we want them to be that fully realized. We want to make sure that, there aren't subtle acting keys or notes that are being lost in translation. We want to make sure that, big action shots are being accounted for properly. And again, we just don't want anybody to guess. We want to provide all the information that we possibly can to make sure that the hundreds of people that are going to touch these have all the information they need.
Cool. Awesome. So we go through, Revelation part 1 drops. We have, 4 months between part 1 and part 2, and then we get part 2. How soon after part 2 aired were you informed that another season was ordered by Netflix?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I can answer that question.
Okay. I thought maybe that would be the case.
Yeah. They
Okay. So we go from there. We go to the announcement in June of, I think it was 2022, that Revolution was coming. It was during the Geek Week, Netflix Geek Week. We get that. Can you speak on were you already in work mode for it, or did work begin at the announcement? Or
oh yeah, we were already working on it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. So we're moving into Revolution. speaking with Teddy and Rob and Tim Sheridan, this one of the script writers, um, they had this idea of the story they wanted to tell moving forward. Um, and they've even said that they have, if season 3 happens, they know where they want to take it and stuff like that. Is it with that in mind? Do those story ideas and I'm really struggling on how to phrase this because I don't know what any of the vernacular is. I guess what I want to know is, do you get an outline for the show that you want to see, or is it more solidified and formalized when you began working on Revolution?
Yeah, we had a pretty in-depth outline when we began. They were well underway with the actual scripts.
Okay.
And there's a period of prep and development and all of that type of stuff that happens before pre-production actually begins. And we kind of use that outline to guide us with this period of development, where we need to spend our focus based on the higher level story points and everything. So like, we have an idea of who the characters are, we have an idea of where they're going to go, and we obviously have an idea of the overarching story. So we work towards those goals, and then the scripts start pouring in, and sometimes things are exactly as they are written in the outline, and then sometimes things shift a bit, and so we kind of have to take those and account for all the various things that go into a 22 to 25-minute episode.
Being fully transparent, He-Man and Teela and their kind of love story is one of my favorite aspects of
Agreed, yeah.
The entire thing. So I was very excited for that, to finally see it. And we've been waiting 40 years since the Filmation show to see something happen between them that had always been hinted at. We'd seen it in the comics and stuff. So that was really exciting. What, and we kind of talked about this at the top of the interview, just as a fan yourself, what is it like seeing these big moments come to fruition as a fan?
I mean,
and getting to kind of work on that and see that and make this happen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll be like really, really honest with you, and I'm talking about watching those animatics every day. Part of it is it's my job, but the other part of it is that I'm a fan, and I don't need to watch those animatics every weekend. But when I talk about the emotions that come with these things, like, again, I know Kevin has talked about it as well, but I'll echo it. I mean, those are bringing tears to my eyes and chill bumps to my skin. And you watch 110, the He-Man, dragon sequence.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the coolest shot of He-Man I've ever seen in my entire life, and to be a part of, in my opinion, the coolest sequence that He-Man has ever done in film, TV, or anything was spectacular. The transformation sequence in Revolution, again, I watched it 700 times because it moves me emotionally in ways that you just never imagine when you're. It's one thing to sit and watch and just like take it all in fresh as a fan. It's another thing to be in the meetings, in the conversations, listening to the voice actors, watching the art getting created. And then at the very end of the day, albeit I didn't have any pencil to paper or anything like that, I do spreadsheets and I fix problems. But at the end of the day, to see something that this team that you are a part of come to life, it is. And for it to be He-Man of all things on the planet, it just, I can't even express to you how fucking cool it is,
I love that so much. I'm so happy to hear you talk about it that way, because as me watching it as it's presented in its finalized form, there were moments where I had the chills, I had the tears in my eyes, I just had those waves of euphoria hitting me, and just feeling so happy and excited that this was, that I was watching this unfold.
Yeah.
As someone who worked on it, when we work, we kind of get a lot of the time when we're going about our jobs, it's kind of a heads down type thing, and you just kind of push forward. And so it's great to hear that it was a good experience for you, and by all accounts from people I've talked to involved with the creation of it and the production of it, everybody just seems to have loved being a part of this.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, to watch the people sort of working on this, who aren't all that familiar with it, find the admiration and love that we have for this property is another special aspect of it. To work with a Teddy and a Rob and a Kevin who, are so passionate about what they do. Teddy and Rob know MOTU inside and out. And to, again, I think of myself as a fairly big fan. Teddy and Rob will talk about some things and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know that. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it was just, it's really, it is a dream come true, sort of pinch yourself, sort of deal here. Growing up as a kid, 9 years old, I knew I wanted to get into animation. I didn't know what I was going to do. Definitely didn't ever think it was going to be He-Man, but to be here in my 40s and sort of come full circle for it is, again, it's just, it's a dream come true. It's just really like, pinch me please, because I've got to wake up out of this dream. This isn't real. Oh wait, it is.
Well, I'm so happy for you. And again, I just, as we kind of come to the close of the interview, I just want to reiterate just the gratitude that I feel in my heart for you and the team and, everybody who's had a hand in this, because, I'm 42 years old. I have 2 kids. I haven't felt this happy in a long time, and it's incredible.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
An incredible feeling.
All of that, is really incredible to hear, because, that's who we're making it for. We're making it for Dad at Arms, and we're making it for all the people who, sit in their toy rooms and have a podcast on YouTube and talk about this silly little IP from the 80s that just won't ever go away and just continues to grow and get better over time, in my opinion. The toys have gotten better. The media has gotten better. Again, maybe a little biased. I'm really excited to see what happens with the movie. I'm hopeful that it all happens. We've been teased before, so fingers crossed.
We've been down this road. Yeah. I like to joke about the movie. I've gotten to the point where I say, I'll believe it when I'm sitting in the theater with my Grayskull popcorn bucket, watching the end credits roll. Then I'll believe that a movie is happening.
Same.
But yeah, I mean, just incredible. Is there anything else regarding the technical side of things and the job you do that you want to make sure that you add that I might not have asked in my ignorance?
Not that I can think of from a technical aspect. I think that those art books are a great place to sort of get a peek behind the curtain in terms of how we operate. There's lots of great YouTube videos and behind the scenes stuff on how animation productions go. It is a long, very labor intensive process. It's very rewarding. There is a feeling that you can't really describe until you see something that you're a part of on the screen and your mom can watch it and, everything else is going on. I guess I'll just leave you with this, again, appreciate all the fans. The love that is poured into this is for every fan like yourself who is still going MOTU strong. I also want to just thank our crew. They are incredible. We had some incredible character designers, background artists, compositors, directors, admin folks. Across the board, I think that we had one of the best teams in television animation. And, I just hope that outside of a few silly folks out there, everybody can see and feel the love that was poured into that, because it really was from the very top down.
Awesome. Well, let's have a little bit of fun now. I've been having fun, but do you have any favorite characters?
I do. So, as a chubby little kid, I was particularly fond of Ram Man.
Awesome.
I love me some Ram Man. My favorite toy, I just got the new one in the mail 2 days ago, is Extendar. I love great. Extendar. Mechaneck, huge fan of Mechaneck. Let me see. Trapjaw, I love a lot. I mean, I can go on and on. Many Faces also. Many Faces, Mechaneck, Ram Man, and Extendar are probably like my favorite characters. Love He-Man and I love Tila. I love Skeletor. I think those are the easy answers.
Sure. Awesome. If you had to pick two moments, one from Revelation and one from Revolution that are just your favorite moments, both as a fan and as somebody who has worked on this show, what would they be?
Well, I kind of mentioned them. I'll mention two others that I like. From Revelation, it's the He-Man Dragon shot. I was just like, holy cow. I also really, really enjoyed the whole Tila Evelyn sorceress fight. And sort of the conclusion of that really, really was some drama for me on screen and really well executed. From Revolution, the transformation, obviously, that's my favorite sequence that we did between both shows, was that transformation. But I think my favorite moment was Gwildor's introduction. The first time I heard Teddy, I was completely floored, and I messaged him, and I was like, dude, holy shit, you sound incredible. And Gwildor, I know I didn't mention him, I love Gwildor, and to bring him into the show for the first time to be animated, like, how cool is that?
Yeah, it's awesome.
There's also this. I just want to shout out to Adam Conroe. There's this one transition in Revelation. It's when they're in Preternia and Tila has gotten upset at Adam, and there's this transition where there's like lightning bugs, right? And then Adam he did this awesome little cross dissolve where the lightning bugs, I think they turn into stars. And I love that transition. That's so awesome. Good. It's so silly, and it's such a small little thing. Again, you want to talk about technical. That's one of those. There's transitions that they put throughout the show. They're just some of the smartest, cleanest, coolest little transitions ever, in my opinion.
Awesome. Very cool.
Oh no, it wasn't. It was sorry. The transition it was Sparks.
Okay.
And then that dissolves to the little lightning bugs, and I think then Tila and Adam have their conversation. That's
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good with Roboto. Yes. Yeah. Oh, very cool. And I mean, that all looks like magic to me. Yeah. As somebody who has no idea how animation works, or I can't even draw. Like, I can barely draw stick figures. So it's all magic to me. You guys are doing it.
Technically, it is magic. It is the illusion of making 24 drawings a second move and feel like they're alive. It is magic.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Awesome. I also wanted to, I noticed your shirt that you're wearing, your sweatshirt, and I'm kind of mad at myself because I have that same design on a t-shirt, and I was going to wear it for this show. I was like, no, I should put a Revelation shirt on because we're going to be talking about Revelation.
Well, you say that, I saw your shirt and I was like, oh, I probably should have worn a Revolution shirt.
At least we both got Skeletor hats on, so that works.
True. Very true.
Very cool. I don't know if I have any more questions for you. Just thank you for joining me and thank you for spending your time. I love being able to meet you and all the people I've met before and just getting to talk about this stuff. And, I feel like words can't express the gratitude that I feel for all of this. And it's made me feel like a kid again. And that's something that's very special.
Well, perfect. Appreciate the kind words. And thank you for having me as well.
Yeah. For people who I can't talk. I'm a little flustered. For people who want to find you online and follow you, in these different spaces, if you want to be found, where can they do that?
Most active on Instagram, and you can find me at Shane Bloodsnake.
Okay. Very cool. And we'll wrap up now. Thanks everybody out there for watching and for tuning in. I appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe. That helps me out. But more importantly, just thanks for being a fan. And I just want to reiterate that there's plenty of negativity out there. So let's be a little bit more positive, and we can be better. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.